Accuweather's Rob Miller joins us on the line as we talk about this storm. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus and Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Rob, we've got a lot of rain coming.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like we're going to see the tropical rainstorm Ida passing through the region, going to bring some locally heavy rainfall throughout the area. Most of that heavier rain is going to start later tonight, continue through or at least into the daytime tomorrow. I think late in the afternoon we'll start seeing some of that rainfall wind down. But, I do think most of the area is going to see anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. And, again, falling in a short period of time, that could lead to some flooding, especially low-lying and poor drainage areas. So especially tomorrow morning commute, you're going to want to give yourself some extra time to get around. But it's going to be raining and going to be a pretty wet time in the next 24 to 36 hours.
This time of the year, we're always reminded about some of the weather terms. A hurricane, of course, tropical storm, tropical depression. And those really don't have, there's not much difference between them when it comes to amounts of rainfall, right? It's more wind-based when they change those categories?
Correct. Those terminologies are based more or less on the strong winds associated with the systems. Now, the good news for us is that we're not going to be dealing with much in the way of wind with this. So that's why Accuweather likes to use the term tropical rainstorm, because this is just going to be some tropical downpours moving through the area.
Yeah. Okay. That being the case, track this particular storm for us. Why is it so strong? Why is it headed our way? Is it more common for Gulf storms to come and attack our area than other storms?
Sure. This is a pretty common track where we get a strong tropical system moving inland over the Gulf Coast region, and then it tracks northward and eventually curves off to the east as other storm systems and other factors in the upper atmosphere steer the weather systems along the way. So this is not a very unusual track by any means. We've seen things over the past decade or so. We've had Ivan and some other storms come through the area and bringing some locally heavy rainfall. So this is not a very common or an uncommon track, but the reason why we're still expecting so much rainfall was just because of how strong it was at landfall. It was a Category 4 hurricane when it made landfall, with those maximum sustained winds near 150 miles per hour. So it just had a lot of energy, a lot of oomph with it when it came on shore, and it just has not a whole lot of time for all that energy to dissipate. So by the time it gets up to here, certainly not like we've seen down in Louisiana with the storm, but certainly going to be a flood maker for us around the region.
Now, you're a meteorologist, and we know that you're concerned with the weather now, but you also have a bit of a weather history bug within you, just like all meteorologists do. So when we think about this storm that is coming our way now, does it compare to some other storm that we can recall from the last 10 or 15 years, the way that it is coming at us?
The one that comes to my mind is Ivan. Back, I believe that was in 2004, somewhere in the early 2000s there. Kind of came through the area and brought a couple inches of rain. Now, I don't think we're going to see as much rainfall as we've seen with some of those storms, but this is certainly a very similar storm. And again, these are fairly common tracks, with especially this time of year, late in the summer, as we head into fall here.
Yeah. Now, this has the flash flood watch associated with it. Rob, can you help us understand flood stage? For instance, the flood watch for the Conemaugh River at Seward, which is just a couple of miles away from our studios. Flood stage there is 12 feet. As of this morning, it was at 3 feet, but there are predictions that it will reach flood stage late tomorrow evening. Could you explain that whole thing for me? What is flood stage?
Flood stage is just the level on the rivers and streams where once the rivers and streams rise to that point, they overflow their banks. And so that's just kind of a way to gauge how high the water levels are going to be. And, certainly as we, take into consideration the rain that's going to be falling, not just in that specific area, but all around it, and all those tributaries and streams and creeks that feed into the Conemaugh there, it's going to add to that water rise there. But the flood gauge is just simply the level at which flooding problems start to begin. Yeah.
Now, we remember, and we just had the observation of the 20th anniversary, or the, 1977 flood. It's more than 20 years ago. It was the anniversary of the Johnstown flood back last month.
Sure.
And we were talking about that extensively with some folks from Seward who in that area were victimized by the flooding there. And certainly while we're not predicting something like that, it does call for people to take some precautionary measures. There are things we can do right now, aren't there?
Absolutely. Certainly, you're going to want to heed any of those warnings that come out later tonight and tomorrow from the National Weather Service. But certainly, if you're living or in an area that is just flood prone to begin with, some roadways will be flooded over. You're going to want to make sure you take alternate routes to get to your destinations. But the bottom line is just, make sure you heed those warnings. Get to high ground if you can. If your basements and low levels tend to flood out, you're going to want to make sure, maybe you move some valuable things out of the way so you don't have those damaged and destroyed. But this is, again, not going to be anything like the Johnstown floods, but certainly, localized flooding, more typical of what we typically see in the summertime from these, tropical downpours.
Yeah. This isn't anything unusual, we know, but is this any more unusual than in other years? Are we getting more storms this year or less or about the same?
It seems to be maybe a little bit more on the wetter side, and just in general across the Northeast states here. It seems to be many areas, many locations are, either at or approaching some of their wetter summers on record. So it certainly has been a wetter pattern across much of Pennsylvania and surrounding areas over the summer. So it's just a matter of where these storm tracks set up, and unfortunately this year it seems to be setting up right across Pennsylvania and giving many of us one of our wetter summers on record.
He is Rob Miller, Accuweather meteorologist. Thanks for joining us today, Rob.
You're welcome.
All right, have a great day.
You too.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM and AM 1160.